I have avoided doing this for a year and a half. I joined end of January of last year. I have lived a life essentially as a boring commercial lawyer for over 35 years. I have more billable hours than you can imagine, because that's been the way of my life. And so I learned recently someone had a very nice way to think of the world as we've got three things to offer: time, talent, or treasury. And I always offered treasury. I bought out of coaching my kids. I'd always, oh, how much is it? Here's a check. And didn't do that. I did ref swim meets for a while because I grew up as a swimmer. But anyway, so I've avoided this and dreaded this day because of all of you and your impressive backgrounds. I became interested in Rotary because my father was Rotarian. I did one of the summer exchange programs back in 1977 to Sweden. So I've been interested in Rotary for a long time, but I also had a misconception about Rotary, certainly in this area. I had always understood from growing up, and I'll get to that part, my personal history, but I always understood that one person per occupation. And because I knew a Rotarian in the first law firm I went to, I assumed there's the lawyer. So law is off limits. So that was 37 years ago. And I never really pursued it until maybe 10 years ago. I sort of checked into the Rotaries out where I live in Northern Virginia, and none of those really met my schedule. Sort of difficult to get back, commute downtown and come back to Northern Virginia. And then I saw an ad that the district was running, now 2+ years ago, and I responded to that. So I'm delighted. It's been a winding journey, but I'm delighted to be here. So I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio, more or less. I lived in a couple other states, but I would tell you I grew up in Cincinnati. That's where my father was Rotarian, was in Cincinnati. He's a boring Ohioan, and my mother's a World War II refugee from the former Yugoslavia. So I had a very strange upbringing between those two. A lot of fighting. It's sort of Southern Europe kind of approach. I have an older brother who's was into artificial intelligence well before it was a thing, back in the late 70s up at MIT. And then I've got a younger sister who's out in, she was executive at insurance companies and now is teaching high school. She lives in the Pasadena area. So that's my quick family life. I went to University of Virginia undergrad, spent a year at Cambridge University in England studying Marxist economics, went to University of Michigan for law school, have a tremendous passion for University of Michigan. My wife went there, and my third son, I only have one son, my third child, only son, went to Michigan for both undergrad and for a graduate business degree. As I told you, I'm a lawyer. I do antitrust law at this point almost exclusively. I was at two big firms and became a refugee 27 years ago now. We started our own little boutique firm here in Washington. We do a lot of work for we're very interested to hear Chuck speak because we represent some of his members. We do a lot of work in the railroad space. And so anyway, so that's sort of my boring life, but I'm happy to now be, instead of being focused on treasury, I thought it now time to use my time, and then some other day I'll find a talent. So thank you.